welcome to the Charles Aris Podcast. In case you're unfamiliar with us, Charles Aris, we're a 54-year-old retained executive search firm. What we're most well known for is our strategy recruiting practice, which effectively translates into recruiting both current and former management consultants into opportunities with a variety of clients. Those range from Fortune 500 companies, private equity firms, private equity portfolio companies, startups, nonprofits, venture capital firms. Really, if you can think of it, we've done it. I'm Clifton Vaughan. I help lead our private equity strategy practice in the Northeast. So placing consultants or former consultants into fund level opportunities. And I'm joined by Johnny.
Hi, all. I'm Jonathan Goffredi. I help spearhead the private equity strategy practice based in San Francisco and spearhead our search work on the West Coast.
Awesome. Well, team, today what we were hoping to just talk about a little bit is why would someone consider a career in private equity coming from consulting? And as a quick bit of data on the subject, over the last 5 years, our firm and our practice in particular has completed just over 120 searches for private equity firms, almost always either operating or investing roles on behalf of the private equity firms themselves. So going from there, Johnny, I might let you kick us off. Today we want to talk about why private equity is an attractive exit opportunity for current or former consultants.
Yeah, so through the some 100+ searches we've done in the space, we've heard, a lot of reasons as to why a career in private equity is compelling and attractive. But for the sake of this and not having a full hour-long discussion, we've consolidated it into really four key reasons, which we'll cover today. Number one is just career trajectory. The second is meaningful work. The third, the people. And then the last piece is the earnings potential and the financial upside. And so we'll dive a bit deeper into those four. Clifton, do you want to take the first topic?
Yeah, happy to. So private equity truly tends to be a fast track for high ownership leadership positions down the line. So imagine that you've got several years of consulting experience combined with several years in a private equity environment where there's tangible impact, often a clear mandate for accountability for the outcome. You'll build a really valuable toolkit that is useful in pretty much any career, be that continuing the path in private equity or pivoting into something more industry specific. But you'll build up true financial acumen if it's investing role or general management toolkit that you can apply to a range of businesses if it's more of an operating role. And you're really going to differentiate yourself from the rest of the market in a meaningful way. The kinds of opportunities that you'll have access to after getting a toolkit in private equity are truly unique. And we've seen this experience leveraged in a large variety of ways post private equity, which I'll let Jonathan speak to in just a second. But to speak to what could be true for someone who does start a career in private equity, typically these are some of the most demanding and high impact roles that you have access to coming out of consulting. A lot of the folks that we talk to are usually excited about either an investing or operating seat. And so on the investing side of the house, you'll build up a really financially savvy toolkit that allows you to look at businesses from a 30,000 foot level, identify what are the attractive factors of a business that we are really excited about exploring further. And then once you actually make an investment, how do you actually act upon those attractive factors? The secondary part would be more of the operating roles, which we think are really quite common exit opportunities for consultants and something we've talked about on the podcast before, a really growing trend. And I often compare this to corporate, as that's usually the other most common exit opportunity for consultants. You'll get exposure to a lot more variety and a lot more challenging problems in a portfolio operations group. And not only will you play a meaningful role in the strategy and ideation of how to solve a problem, but you usually get meaningfully more ownership when it comes to executing against that plan and really solving the issue.
Yeah, and to maybe speak to the accelerated career trajectory and specifically exit opportunities, be it an investing role or a portfolio operations role, what we have found is that folks that move into these roles tend to accelerate very quickly in their careers. If we look at past placements that we've made, Clifton, we follow folks along in their careers, and these folks have wildly successful outcomes. we've seen a few paths. One, just being moving into a GM true operator role faster than your peers. We've seen folks continue their investing careers, go to business schools at the top tier programs. We've seen folks start companies. If you're someone that's entrepreneurial and has an itch to do that, you're going to be wildly more prepared, around all aspects of running a business, but even raising capital, networking, and you immediately come to the table with a lot more credibility, having been on the other side of the table. I think just like more broadly, when we see, someone with experience in private equity on the resume, especially, a highly regarded firm, we know the pace that these firms operate with and, the rigor, and it's an instant credibility builder, and has huge career upside in terms of the unlock on career opportunities that would come your way.
Yeah, even just a small living example of that. This week, a resume came in my inbox from a candidate who's in private equity. Frankly, they were not really what our client asked us to find for this particular opportunity. And because they had spent some time at some really brand name private equity firms, our client said, you know what, I'd at least consider them because that's a really rigorous environment. And I'm sure while their experience hasn't been a one-to-one to what we went to market for, that is someone that we should at least consider versus if they, were in a less rigorous environment like a corporate setting or a startup. Not to say that you can't have really impactful experiences there, but I think the brand names really carry weight behind them. The other thing that we would talk about, or really just number two of why would a consultant consider a career in private equity, is really like in the interesting / fulfilling work vein. And so one of the things I hear most commonly from consultants, especially current consultants, is that they want more skin in the game, or they want to have more ownership over their work. And I think there's few better ways to immediately solve that than moving into private equity. And so if you're someone who's intellectually curious, enjoys getting exposure to a wide variety of industries, new businesses, business models, learning about emerging trends, private equity gives you a healthy amount of exposure to all of those things, but with a true level of ownership. You might be working on deals and with portfolio companies where your decisions matter. They have consequences. You're not just an advisor, but as an investor or operator, you're someone who's directly involved with making things happen. The individuals we usually place into private equity have found the work to be extremely fulfilling. At least that's what I've heard from a lot of the candidates I've placed.
Yeah, absolutely. And just dovetailing off of that, Clifton, I think what I often see is that for folks that really love the type of work that they're doing in consulting, they love the problem solving, they love the rigor, the pace, but they want, like you said, that more ownership, that more skin in the game. Private equity is a great solve, and what that means in the real world is you're not working on frankly a deck that's going to go sit on an executive's desk and may never see the light of day. You're going to see your work literally in the news. You're going to see quantifiable impact on the bottom line. You're going to have line items on your resume with impact to speak to that. Again, just going back to that first point of career upside, gives you a lot to talk about in an interview setting. By virtue of that, you're also participating in the financial gains of your work. So there's genuine ownership over the outcomes. I know we've talked to some candidates recently, Clifton, that are doing work that's in these roles usually reserved for seasoned executives, negotiating multi-international partnerships, major agreements, running transformation offices of major companies, launching new products, just an insane amount of experience at a relatively early stage in one's career. And I think for a lot of the folks that we've worked with and placed into private equity, they value that.
Agreed. The third thing that we thought worthwhile to talk about why people want to break into private equity is really the people and the people that you get exposure to by having a role in private equity. So a lot of the private equity firms that we've had the pleasure to work with usually are comprised of individuals with stellar backgrounds. So there's a lot of the traditional markers of success: top schools, top grades, top performers while they were in consulting or banking, really demonstrated track records of success. And a lot of folks are ex-investment bankers or ex-management consultants. But there's also individuals that I think have a more storied route, and usually it's someone who had a wildly successful career as an executive and then moved to the buy side. These individuals that are at these private equity firms are almost always someone who's accomplished something of significance. They've ran with the best and brightest and proved themselves as someone who's quite capable and frankly just been really adept at succeeding in multiple environments.
Absolutely, and just building on that, usually folks that exit into private equity and spend meaningful time in the industry are folks that have just, frankly, won in their career. They've been wildly successful, as you talked about. By being in private equity, you're going to be working with some of the best and the brightest individuals. The sheer learning opportunity there alone is why a lot of people are drawn and want to break into the industry. Not only do you work with talented folks at the fund level, but also really amazing, talented executives and entrepreneurs and businesses that you're invested in, and by osmosis, you're getting mentorship and learning, from all of the folks at the fund level, but even the best and brightest, building alongside aligned management teams, and you just really don't get this kind of exposure anywhere else.
Agreed. John, I think that's a really nice segue into the last point that we had identified, at least of the big four that we were talking about, which is earnings potential. And so, I would be remiss if I didn't highlight the fact that a lot of people want to break into private equity because of high earning potential. Private equity professionals often enjoy industry-leading compensation, and compensation structures in the industry typically include a base salary, a bonus, and then performance-based incentives that can be carried interest, co-invest, profit sharing. There's a couple of different flavors of compensation on that front. But successful investments and value creation can lead to significant financial rewards for those involved.
Absolutely. And actually, just to share some data behind this. So we conduct an annual compensation survey targeted at current and former consultants. An interesting insight from our last consulting compensation survey is that on average, candidates in private equity are earning 42% more relative to their peers working in other industries. Quick plug, this study is actually available for free on our website.
Awesome. Well, to everyone listening, those are what we would call the four most common reasons we hear as to why people want to break into private equity. Those are certainly not the only four, but having been a recruiter for this industry for a long time, I think those are probably the four most common ones. And so if you're a former or current consultant considering a pivot into private equity, we'd love to be a resource. Please feel free to reach out to myself or Jonathan. As we mentioned, I really try to lead our efforts in the Northeast. Jonathan has a really good handle on the West Coast. And we'll leave our contact information here, but it's also on our website. Mine is Clifton, Clifton .Vaughan, Vaughan at charlesaris.com. And
I'm at jonathan.goffredi, Goffredi at charlesaris.com. And as we look ahead into 2024, we're really excited about the appetite for consulting talent in private equity. We expect that to continue to grow. We look forward to sharing more insights in the future and appreciate you all listening.